Well, maybe our most popular parlor game, talking about house prices. For the last few years, the talk has centered on whether or not they're about to crash. Tonight, we've convened the bottom line to answer your questions, and you sent some really good ones. Patty Croft is an economic analyst and former senior banker. Jim Stanford is an economist with Unifor. Preet Banerjee is a personal finance advisor and freelance journalist. And Amanda Lang is our senior business correspondent. Their answers in a moment, but first some basics. Sure, what goes up must come down, but for years it's been all about up. Even with a shaky economy, house sales just keep humming along. Another 2.7% in the last year. And prices, they're up too, 6% to a whopping national average of $430,000. That's even with Alberta's market slumping and the prairies weak. But the major driver remains the hotspots of Vancouver and Toronto, and they are still hot, very hot. So whatever happened to the much-discussed big bubble and the predicted burst?
When the bubble bursts.
In a housing bubble.
People talk about the bubble.
We are in a significant bubble.
What actually a bubble is.
Start about the bubble.
We're still waiting. Interest rates are part of the reason they remain historically low and so tempting for buyers. And even with dire warnings from almost every corner, the Minister of Finance said this just the other week.
There is no housing bubble.
But that hasn't stopped the headlines. So what about the value of your home, your condo, your mortgage? When to buy, when to sell, when to rent? Is there really a bubble? It's time for your questions. Let's get to the answers. Let's get to the first question. Here it is, came in on video. Watch this.
Hi, my name is Laura Medeiros, and my question for the bottom line is, how much of the housing market is foreign investment, and what is the % increase as a result of that foreign investment?
You know, we get this question all the time, right? How much of all this is foreign investment? Patty, what's the answer?
You know, I'd love to be able to answer that with cold, hard facts, but there aren't any. There's no comprehensive surveys to collect the data. But most analysis suggests that about 5% of the demand of the total Canadian market is related to foreign investment. But it varies by region and by type of property. So, for example, in Vancouver, in luxury housing, about 40% of that is driven by foreign investment.
Amanda?
Patty's right. When we don't know, and experts will say that nobody measures it. Foreign investors actually often buy through a local Canadian corporation, so it's hard to track. The only thing I would say is it's not necessarily a bad thing because the type of foreign investment matters. And these days, there's a lot of foreign capital looking for a hard asset because interest rates are low. They want some kind of safe place for money, and that's patient capital. So that actually may be a better form of investor than your next-door neighbor who's buying a condo hoping to make money on it.
All right, next question from Twitter. John Dobbin from Winnipeg writes, should I, as a condo owner, look to sell even if there is a mortgage penalty, all this to avoid later devaluation? Preet.
Two parts to that question. First, how big is the mortgage penalty? And these vary wildly. I saw a mortgage broker tweet the other day that someone with a $900,000 mortgage had a $10,000 penalty, and someone with a $600,000 mortgage had a $34,000 penalty. So that's part one. The second part is, how confident are you that you can time the market? A lot of people have been trying to time the market with not a lot of success. So I would frame it as, how upset would you be if you were wrong?
Jim.
The other piece that isn't in the question is why he wants to sell. I mean, if he's selling because he has to move somewhere, then obviously, yeah, you just have to bite it.
Sounds like he's selling, or is thinking of selling, simply to
try and lock in the gains.
Exactly.
And he is trying to time the market, and it is a risky business. I prefer to think of your house as a place to live in. And in that regard, if he's moving, then yes, he has to take it.
All right, next question. And this one comes from Nancy Rawson in Hunter River, PEI. Sounds like a great place. Why would anyone use a realtor to sell their home when you can do it yourself and save thousands? By selling myself, I can pass along financial savings to prospective buyers, keeping me competitive in the marketplace. Preet.
I hear this question a lot lately because if you sell a $500,000 home and a 5% realtor commission, that's $25,000. You sell in a market where it sells in a day, you kind of ask, well, what did I pay for? It's the prospective buyers. So when you look at it, a real estate agent's commission is split between the selling agent and the buying agent. So if there's no commission to split, the buying agents aren't going to show their clients your house. So you have to do a lot more lead work. So you could do it, or you could bite the bullet, get a realtor, and maybe get a quicker sale.
All right. Next question of yours comes on video.
Hi, I'm Jamie Harbinson from Ottawa. I'm 48 years old and married, and we're mortgage-free. For years, my RRSP lost money, and I'd like to look at investing in real estate to help boost my retirement years. The problem is that I'd have to take out a mortgage on my house to get the down payment. With interest rates being historically low, I think it's a never-before-seen opportunity, but my wife doesn't like the idea of having a mortgage again. What are your thoughts?
Oh, Patty.
Who's waiting?
Patty, you're going to have to settle this family discussion here.
I'm going to side with the wife. No, 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 don't do that. It makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up when I hear people talk about borrowing money, using leverage to pay for something to fund their retirement. This gentleman is only 48 years old. You're young. You and your wife can work, sock away that money, and you had bad luck with your RSP in the past, but get a fee for service advisor to put you into some conservative investments at low fees, and that'll solve your retirement problem. But do not borrow money to fund your retirement.
One for the wife on that one. All right, another video. Here it is.
Hi, my name is Michael Delacosta from Calgary. I'm in my late 30s, unmarried, and have never owned property. With no mortgage, I have no credit card or loan debt, modest savings, and retirement plans. When I hear reports of Canadians owing 162.6% of their annual income to debt, I don't feel owning property is a good decision. Am I wrong?
Amanda.
Well, I mean, I've said this before. The reason to buy a home is to have a place that you can only buy. In other words, the place you want to live is the only way to get it. Renting is fine, but the caveat is, will you force yourself to save? So renting is perfect as long as you have a savings plan that you're committed to. Most people actually benefit from a home because it forces them to build up equity over time. If you're willing to actually make that commitment, go ahead and rent.
He sounds like he's making that commitment.
Then, good for him. And no rush. And by the way, he may actually time the market beautifully, and when he's ready to buy, prices may have come down.
He's got to see Preet's video. Preet's got this awesome video on YouTube that explains that renting versus buying thing. Google Preet's video on that. It is exactly the right answer, as Amanda gave. Yes,
and it's free, right?
Yeah, I'll put the link on the national Facebook page.
Yeah. Oh, okay, good. Here's another one. Comes in from Mark and Lisa Revel in Toronto. My husband and I both live and work in Toronto. We currently rent a condo and would like to buy a house. We each earn $55,000 to $60,000 a year. First, can we afford a small house in Toronto on our income? Combined income, $120,000, asking whether they can afford a house. Second, should we wait to see if house prices go down, or is that just wishful thinking? Thank you. Jim.
Well, the headlines the other day was the average detached house in Toronto was $1 million. Yeah. So, you know, I guess you could buy a small house. They probably mean a really small house. Let's say you bought half a house, $500,000. That could be out in the suburbs further, or just a very small place. The mortgage and fees and so on monthly today is probably going to run you $2,300 a month or up. So you probably can afford that out of that combined income of those two spouses. But they've got to make sure, number one, as we've all been saying, it's a place that they want to live in. Number two, stress test your budget, because the interest rates are going to go up somewhere. We don't know when. But when they go up, make sure that you've got room in your budget for, say, $3,000 a month in mortgage fees. Most of all, make sure this suits your lifestyle. Don't think of it as an investment. Again, think of it as a place to live and raise your family.
Preet, what do you think?
Yeah, there's no shortage of calculators out there that can help people do that. There's a great website called ratehub.ca, and they've got a number of affordability calculators, mortgage budgeting calculators. And what I would do is I would take a look at what they could afford and see what that monthly payment is, compare that to their current rent, and the difference, save that diligently into a savings account to build up to their down payment. And then they can also see if they can afford it or if they're going to tap into it or not.
It still seems so, bizarre, a statement of our times, right, that a family making $120,000 a year is wondering whether they can afford a house. Back to the video.
Housing bubble? What housing bubble? Economics 101 would suggest that in a free market, properties are worth what someone is willing to pay for them, just like for vehicles or other assets. Since properties keep selling and people keep buying them, including with offshore and new immigrant money, doesn't that suggest that the bubble is a myth at this time?
Now, this is the guy who is giving Joe Oliver his advice on the no bubble. No, but he makes an argument. What do you make of it?
Well, so the only thing I would say, and I don't mean to be dismissive, but if you said if there's a willing buyer at any price, I'll take you back to Holland and sell you a tulip bulb way over market. So bubbles happen. People get excited and they get they give inflated values to assets. Harder to do with some assets than others. We know historically it happens with real estate. So I would say be cautious. I'm not saying there is a bubble. I'm not sure that there is, but I would say be cautious because when there is one, the correction can be severe.
So you're hedging your bubble bets.
Yes.